Welcome to our Swift Epiphanies.
I'm Tanya.
And I'm Emery.
We're a mother and daughter with an admiration
And a little obsession
for Taylor Swift.
In this podcast, we let you in on our discussions of Taylor's artistry,
her genius,
and her poetry.
Her music evokes powerful emotions
and has led to epiphanies both personal and universal.
Come along and join our deep conversations as we share our Swift epiphanies. Okay, we have had a full weekend of listening to Midnight. And we're so excited to talk about it and our reactions.
Talk about sleepless nights. We didn't sleep. I haven't slept in like a week.
No, getting through everything she's released so far. And it's been so exciting. Do you feel like this weekend has been ethereal?
Yes, I think my feelings overall have been very ethereal listening to this album. It didn't feel real for a second because at first it wasn't what I expected. And then just listening to the lyrics and how it really felt accurate to my soul and my thoughts lately, I was like, there's no way. There's no way this is real. There's no way. And so in that way, it's been very ethereal, otherworldly. How does she know exactly what I'm feeling right now in my life?
It goes back to what I mentioned in the last podcast, that in the middle of the night, when you're having these sleepless nights, those lines are super blurry between the reality and fantasy and nightmare and all of the things that come with those sleepless nights. The word ethereal really does fit this album. Let's talk about the release experience for us. I will say I was so glad that you were here for the release of this album because of everything that led up to it and the actual release. We were on our phones texting each other, and it was such a cool experience to be back together with a release. I think this will be one of my most memorable releases ever.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely very different than the last two / the last four with the re-releases, but it was different now to be able to have our separate opinions and to share that with one another and to both be excited at the same time. And I think it was really, really special, and especially feeling like Taylor was in on it with us and we were in on it with her. This whole release has been big and it's been special.
So the whole release experience has been interesting because we were in different towns, but we're texting, and I know both of us pulled up the lyrics as we started going through, and we were following along as we were listening. And I should note that we are the people that Taylor keeps things clean for. I've always felt like profanity isn't necessary because there's so much other beautiful language in the world, and there's so many other creative ways to speak that profanity has kind of always put me off. So I'm very, very glad and very grateful that Taylor acknowledges that and gives that to those of us who, want to kind of stay away from that profanity. So with that, it's interesting because I was following along and the lyrics online are not cleaned up. So I'm seeing the parallel of the clean version and the explicit version. And this is how it was with Evermore and Folklore for me too. I think her clean stuff is more creative. I think her clean version is more descriptive. I think it's more creative. I think it gives a better visual. So that's just kind of a side note. What do you think about that?
I definitely I can step back and see where she's at and understand that that's her choice. And I don't mind when other people swear or use explicit language. That's their choice. But like you said, I really appreciate that she still gives us these clean versions, these clever, beautiful lyrics in place of what other people enjoy. And so she's really speaking to all of us. And that was definitely one of my first impressions listening to the album. I pulled it up and I was listening to the explicit version of the album, and I personally just got uncomfortable, and I was so grateful that I knew I could rely on Taylor to have a clean version for me, and not that it needs to be clean for everyone. I understand that, but I was so just relieved and confident that I would still be able to listen to her music. I'd still be able to interact with her lyrics. I'd still be able to love her for who she is and how she writes and feel comfortable with what I'm comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And that's huge for me and for us.
Yeah. And I think about it in this way a little bit too. So I speak Spanish, and the two different languages have very different ways to convey things. And sometimes I look at Spanish and I'm like, well, that word conveys or explains it so much better in a much more clear, in a much more concise way. So even with English and Spanish, I'm like, well, I prefer this word over that one. And I kind of look at the explicit versus clean in the same way. On this, I always gravitate toward the clean. So that's just a fun side note for a little insight into who we are and kind of where we're coming with that.
And also why some song titles we shorten.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
The only disappointment with that is that her standard, all the vinyls, all the CDs, that standard is going to be the explicit version. And she's not making extra special clean versions for those of us who would pick up all the extra special clean versions, which I kind of appreciate.
in some ways it's a budget saver.
Yeah,
But
I would have purchased all 4 vinyls and had a clock that.
oh, for sure.
And maybe that's something she'll do in the future, but I just really do appreciate that we're not left out, that
Mhm.
people who prefer to avoid the profanity and the explicit versions can still be a part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And she gives us beautiful words in place of them. So, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
gift. That's a gift in and of itself.
It just reminds me how amazing Taylor is, because she didn't just bleep it out. She replaces it with lyrics that still make sense and that I can still sing along with and take the place of those other words that I don't want to sing along with. So she's great. We love her for this.
Yep. Okay. So have you been online looking at people's reactions and the Easter eggs and the things they've uncovered? Have you been there? Have you been searching up meanings and clues? Have you been doing that?
I have not. There are certainly a couple things in the album that I have not understood fully or had questions about. And so I've looked up some of those things and really just scratched the surface and not gone deep into it. But I haven't looked up any Easter eggs or connections with other albums or songs or her life or things like that. One, I tend to not have time
Right.
in my busy life to do that.
Right.
But two, I just, that's not where my brain goes. My brain doesn't think to wonder, oh, how does this connect to this? And I don't go into that deep labyrinth, in fact, of Easter eggs. I tend to just appreciate the music for what it is.
Mhm.
Have you gone deep into the Easter eggs?
There's a couple things that I have stumbled across, but listeners shouldn't come here to find those uncovered connections and Easter eggs and how it all ties together, because we don't really do that. What we do is we share perspectives and the possibility of meaning. And one of the things I love about Taylor Swift is she is not a jealous author. And her being not a jealous author means that we can interpret things the way we want. And so that's kind of more what we do. We love the artistry, we love the meaning. And of course, a lot of times the reality of what that means brings a lot more and it enriches it. But we don't go through all the lines saying, what does this mean? Where does this come from? Who is this about? What is the connection to that? If people want that, they can find that in so many other places. But we want to talk more about like what this means for us.
Yeah.
And things we do find intriguing with connections, but in a little bit different way.
Yeah. I like that you said that knowing some of the background of her life can sometimes enrich the song, but not necessarily all the time we want to be immersed in those Easter eggs, because I think Lavender Haze certainly applies to her, and I love her and I love her life, and I think it's interesting and wonderful, but I also want to connect these songs to my life and Sweet Nothing and Midnight Rain and just all of these songs that I can love for me in my life and not always think of who they're about for her.
So the exception to that is when I texted you and I said, all for you like Janet. And I explained what that meant, that Janet Jackson had a song called All for You. And I thought there'll be a lot of people out there who don't know what that means. So I was excited to share my real knowledge of that.
I think those are important. I think the references, the allusions in her lyrics are important to know.
So are you saying when she alludes to something? Is that where
No,
she,
an allusion is an indirect reference to another figure, event, place, or work that exists outside the story. Allusions are made to famous subjects so that they don't need explanation. So it's basically like in a story, if they make reference to a historical event or a famous person, or in this case, a song, that's not part of the story. It's a reference from outside her story that gives context or whatever. And so I do think those things are important, but it's the who the song's about and her relationships with others that are fun to know, but don't necessarily enhance my listening of her music.
that
So
makes sense. Okay, it was such an amazing release experience that we're not going to get to everything in this podcast. So we'll do a bonus on the 3 a.m. edition. So today's episode, we're going to go through a couple of categories. We're going to talk about what each of us were right about, what each of us were wrong about, some surprises, some suspicions confirmed, and then we're going to talk about a few of the songs individually that don't fall into those other categories. So let's get to it.
yeah, so this is us following up on last time, our predictions, and being right is a great feeling, and we both were right about a couple things, but the ones we want to talk about specifically are Mastermind and Vigilante. And Mom, you were so right about Vigilante. I remember it came on and all I could think was, oh my gosh, she's right. And the phrase that you said that I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right about was when you said she's talking about herself being a vigilante and cleaning up other people's messes. And I thought that's so accurate. She's cleaning
Thanks.
up other people's messes. She's being the little bird in people's ears with evidence and receipts, and she's doing that vigilante stuff that she is so good at, and just cleaning up people's stupid messes, the things that are wrong with the world. And first of all, that song is amazing, but I just love that you had that insight beforehand that was like, she's going to be the vigilante, she's cleaning up other people's messes, she does it all the time, and that was what her song was about.
Yeah, I was so glad this one went in this direction. One of the things you said about this song was that vigilantes are kind of in a morally gray area. And that also resonated. I think that there's that part of it too. What I take from this song is that there was a time when Taylor started speaking out about injustices in the world. And I think because of her position, because of her power and her persona that people listen to her, she was able to take on some of these injustices in the world and shed light on these injustices and be a strong voice against those injustices in her own life. But in a way, it completely blankets everybody else. So other people are benefiting from her standing up to injustices. And I think this song kind of brings that out. And I love the way that she says on the weekends.
She says, on the weekends, I don't dress for friends. Lately, I've been dressing for revenge.
During the week, quote unquote, during the week, she is being a mega superstar. She is putting out albums. She is writing music. She is storytelling. She's doing all of that. On the weekends, she understands that what she stands up for socially, the things that she fights for, the injustices she brings to light, that makes a huge difference. I loved this song so much because I feel like it is her. And I don't think she set out to be the vigilante in these ways, but she has definitely stepped up to it and she acknowledges it. And she's able to take on that weekend persona and be like, all right, let's go at it. Let's do it. So I loved this song. And I was
I
so
love it
glad
too.
that that's what it was about because of her history of all of that. I thought this is a perfect perspective on vigilante.
Yeah. I like that you said it's not something that she came into fame thinking she was going to be, but she has seen a lot of injustice in her career and she's exposed it, and she writes songs about people that wrong her and situations that don't go well because there's sleight of hand and injustice, and she speaks out against it. I like that you said that.
Okay. Well, I wasn't right about a whole lot more, but there was something you were right about that as I was listening to Mastermind, I was like, Emery got it. Like you nailed this one. Mastermind is awesome and amazing.
I just want to say I was so glad that I was right about this one. Listening to it and knowing that it's this happy side of being a mastermind, this planning out a love story, I was just glad I was right.
Well, let me quote what you said. You said she'd be the mastermind, and you said, I think it would be really cool if this was a song about a shift from someone else being a mastermind to her being the mastermind. And after you'd said that, and I started listening to this, I couldn't believe how spot on you were with the song. But not only that it was a shift, it didn't get in the last podcast, but you had said, that being a mastermind doesn't always have to be conniving. And that stuck with me during this whole song. I was like, she nailed that. She was so right that this was more playful. It was more planned out. It was more, I know what I want and I'm going to figure out ways to get it. I was so excited that you were right.
I think where my prediction had come from is I'm ambitious in different ways, in good ways, in furthering my life and my career and helping society ways. And I think that's where that prediction came from, was a mastermind can be wanting something and going after it and not pushing people down to get it. I think that's the important thing, is that she didn't step on people to find this love. She just got what she wanted and she planned it. And I love the end of this song. She says, all you did was smile because I'm a mastermind. And I think that's so sweet that she feels like she's this mastermind that's planning out this whole relationship and making sure it works, and every step is orchestrated, and he smiles and he knows that she's doing this and she doesn't have to tell him, and he just loves her for it. He loves her for the effort she puts in. I'm glad I was right. That's all I have to say.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you were right about that one.
I know. Being wrong, never fun, but I have never been so happy to be wrong in my life with Sweet Nothing.
I agree. I'm so glad you were wrong.
You were right, and I have no pride in this situation. I will gladly say you were right, because Sweet Nothing is one of my favorites on the album. I started listening to it and immediately I was like, oh my goodness, I love this song. It's a beautiful lullaby. It's a beautiful sentiment of having someone that you love and they're the one you go home to. And like you were saying, you hold on to that sweet nothing. And I also love the addition of he expects nothing from her. And that's a sweet, sweet part of true love, is when you can go home to someone that expects nothing from you, but they love you. It's beautiful. I've never been so happy to be wrong, ever.
Well, you can't give me too much credit. I wasn't 100% right, but I wasn't wrong. Not only was it going in the direction that I wanted it to go, it went farther than I could have even hoped or imagined, because of what you said, that her bringing that into all that you ever wanted from me was sweet nothing. You just love me. It's unconditional. You don't have all these expectations. You don't want me to change. You don't need me to be something I'm not. You just love me. You're right about so many other things, but I
Yeah.
am glad you were wrong about this one, because it ended up being even better than I even hoped. A line in here that I love, it's verse 2. She says, on the way home, I wrote a poem. You say, what a mind. This happens all the time. The sentiment with that is so beautiful. He is in awe of her and he is expressing that. And that's, the definition of what sweet nothings are, sharing these little things that matter to you and your relationship. And I love that she said that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So another piece of this beautiful puzzle is that Joe Alwyn is a co-writer on it with Taylor. And that just makes it so much more deep and beautiful and ethereal. So cute. So beautiful.
I definitely think that's one instance where knowing that this is about them enhances what I get out of this, because it's something real, it's something tangible. This is not a fairy tale relationship. This is a real one that exists in real life, that they feel this, and that gives so much hope to others who are seeking for this type of relationship, that it's out there and it's achievable. And I think that's beautiful.
It definitely went deeper than I wanted it to, and it makes me happy.
Yeah. So, on the note of us being happy about being wrong, I think there's a slight bit of that in what you were wrong about too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I, just like you said, I have never been more happy to be wrong. I did not feel like I would have a connection at all to You're on Your Own, Kid. I had nothing to go on, but my gut reaction was, this title is weird. It doesn't fit. I'm not going to connect to it at all. And to be honest, this is one of the ones I connect with the most. As I was listening to it, I was so happy that it fit. It was exactly where it needed to be on the track list. It fit musically. I just love this one. And so I'm glad to be wrong about this one.
This definitely wasn't what I was expecting from You're on Your Own, Kid, but it brings a whole new meaning to that phrase. As I was taking notes, I wrote that You're on Your Own, Kid is a hopeful kind of on your own. It's a positive spin on you're going to be okay because you've always been, in a sense. And certainly there's a sort of sadness in growing up on your own and feeling like you had to have independence from a young age. But this song, I think, brings you're going to be okay. You always have been, and you're on your own, but your independence is what makes you strong in a lot of ways. I'm also glad you were wrong.
Yeah.
We're overall happy about being wrong today.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting one to be track 5, because I think there's a balance in it between you're on your own, but you're on your own. There's that balance of the fear of that, the disappointment of that, the heartache of that, but balance that with, I did this. I can do it. I've gotten through this. I make the decisions. I make the call. It all comes down to me. I know I'm always the one I can count on. And I need to be okay with that. I need to have a relationship with myself that I can trust in myself. It's hard to be on your own. You always have been. You've always had to figure things out on your own, but then you've got this. You're good at this. You can do this. So I think it's a strange track 5, actually, because I feel like there's those two sides of it that balance. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's hopeful. I think it's honest. And I am so glad this one is included. And I'm so glad I was wrong that I thought I wouldn't feel a connection to it, because I do. I feel a huge connection to this. I really, really love this one. Glad I was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Our next category, Emery, is surprises. What were you most surprised about?
I was most surprised about Snow on the Beach. I love this song. It's a beautiful, soft, lovely song, but I was expecting it to be a bop.
You were.
Just an absolute lighthearted, light sounding, something you jump up and down to in your room while you're singing along. And certainly it can be, but as I was listening to it, it's much more of a lovely ballad than I was expecting. The vocals are beautiful and light and soft and lovely. I love the visuals that they talk about, specifically the Aurora Borealis green. I love that lyric. I keep saying lovely, but that's really just the word that comes to mind when I think of this song. And that was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting it to be lovely. I was expecting it to be fun. And I'm happy about what it is, but it was definitely a surprise, kind of a settled, lovely, peaceful song. I was expecting it to be this fun type of crush feeling rather than a deep love feeling. I'm glad that it's about falling in love at the same time as someone else, else rather than having a crush on someone at the same time as somebody else. I think that's a big difference.
Very, very lovely. I think you're right with that word. Very lovely, calm, and serene. Well, the one that surprised me the most was track number 1, like right from the start, because really and truly, we were expecting it to look a lot more 50s. And I was expecting the album not to have such deep roots into the 70s music style. If you Google disco, it will give you a list of all of these musically specific characteristics. And Lavender Haze had some of those very dominantly. There were voice slides that she does. She would like go back and forth between falsetto and her regular voice. There were synthesizers. There was this syncopated beats, very, very disco-esque. And that surprised me. Like right off the bat, I was surprised in a very, very good and happy way. I loved it. I absolutely loved Lavender Haze. And I loved that that was the introduction to this album. But right from the start, this one surprised me with 70s style music. It surprised me with kind of this mashup of a bunch of different ages, because she actually talks about the 50s. It sounds like the 70s, and she talks about current time with going viral. It's not lost in the 50s. It's not lost in the 70s. It's current, but it brings in those elements, and it totally surprised me.
It sets a beautiful tone for the rest of the album, for sure. And it's another one of those that we had clues on going in, but it totally surprised us.
It was such a fun surprise to start off like that and then just enjoy the rest of it. And maybe that's why it felt like it was the biggest surprise to me, was because it was the first, but it was a big surprise and a very happy surprise.
Yeah.
All right. So besides being right and wrong and then surprised, we want to talk about suspicions confirmed, because there were some suspicions, not necessarily solid predictions, but there were some suspicions in there. And let's talk about what suspicion of yours was confirmed.
These are mostly concerning what we thought we would love. And I thought I would love Labyrinth. And I do. I talked about knowing that it was going to be good, and it is, which is not groundbreaking. It's Taylor Swift. I knew it was going to be good, and it was. I think Labyrinth specifically really speaks to me, and I knew that it would, just by the name Labyrinth. It's definitely different than I expected it to be, but I think the reason I love it so much is for the phrase, "Oh no, I'm falling in love," over and over and over again. And I love that. And so that was definitely confirmed. Labyrinth is a song that I will go back to over and over and over again because of specifically that line, but also just the song as a whole. Our suspicions aren't confirmed because we were right about what the song is. It's just that we knew we would love it based off the title.
Yeah. The one that I chose for my suspicions confirmed was Midnight Rain. And I said, I know I'm going to love it. And I didn't know why. I suspected that that title would bring me a really deep connection and I would love it. And so that suspicion was definitely confirmed. I love Midnight Rain.
Yeah. So we're going to go into a couple honorable mentions, I guess you could call them, songs that don't fit into these categories that we've set. But of course, we still want to talk about every song in the album because they're all amazing. Starting with Maroon. Maroon is one that I love. It's not one that I necessarily feel a personal connection to, but I love it because I had this epiphany that Maroon is a beautiful mesh of the song Red and the song Lover. In the lyrics and the storyline of this song, the color metaphors and how Red is about an ended relationship and Lover is about a continued relationship, but it's about this beautiful storyline of really human things, of dancing in a kitchen and letting your friends crash at your place. And in Maroon, it's cleaning incense off a vinyl shelf and sitting on the floor. And I just love that storyline of it that comes in from Lover, and then the whole color symbolism that comes in from Red. And that's what I love about this song, is those connections to the other songs that she's written before. I just love it for those reasons.
I looked at this as an aged Red. So, Red being scarlet and all of these things that start out this bright, shiny, and then aging into this darker, muddier, browner maroon. And that this relationship followed that kind of as it got older, not fading, but like aging and kind of running its course.
Yeah, Maroon is a very metaphor rich song.
Mm-hmm. I did look up meanings. The lighter reds usually signify joy, passion, lust, and desire. And a darker red refers to more like an energy, a rage, an anger, and even into evil. So it kind of went along with what I was thinking that, it's this age, it's kind of run its course. It's kind of to the point where it's not fresh anymore. It's
Mhm.
done. I'm still kind of trying to get to know Maroon a little bit. I do love the song, but it's the lyrics and the story and the depth of meaning that I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around a little bit more.
Yeah. Not every song is an instant love for me, and one of those is Question, which is the next one we want to kind of highlight. I do think it's a very cleverly written song. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Question?
My thoughts on Question are very similar to Maroon, and maybe that's why these are kind of the honorable mentions at the end that we didn't put in a category because we're still trying to figure them out. Another song that I absolutely love, regardless of who it's written about or what it's written about, I'm still trying to find my understanding of it.
I'm in the same boat for sure. So moving on, we've got Bejeweled is another, I hate saying honorable mention about this one because I love this song. It's kind of in that same realm of her being a mirror ball, that she's this bejeweled, shiny thing that stands out in a room and makes the whole place shimmer. We might have talked about before, and we certainly will again, that she's very self-aware of who she is and how she fits into society. And when she walks into a room, how she's very much seen and visible. And I think this is another song that shows that she is shimmering, that she shines and polishes up real nice. Don't know.
Yeah. I have a feeling with this one that no matter what's happening behind the scenes, I think she's so good at her public persona. She shines. A lot of people want to be like her. A lot of people admire her, and she's going to show up for that, especially for her fans. Even though we know that there are some tarnished pieces, the thing is, she'll give us that too. But she's able to work through things and polish off all that tarnish and make herself shine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I said that this was going to be an iconic song, but is it as iconic as we thought it would be? Let's move to Karma.
I think it's definitely iconic. I think anytime Taylor brings her cats into a song, it's iconic. And but I do think it's in a different way than was expected. I think we all expected a Reputation-esque sounding, feeling song. And certainly it has elements of that, but I love that it's this light, she's receiving good karma for minding her business. I love where she says, and I keep the side of my street clean, you wouldn't know what I mean. And so I see the karma that you get, and I just work on bringing my own karma, my good karma to me because karma loves me. And I just love this sense that she welcomes the things that come into her life because of who she is and what she does, and she's intentional about it. So I love this song.
I do too. It is a mashup of all the possibilities we kind of thought that karma could be, because we did talk about maybe it being more like Reputation, but also we were like, well, it would be nice if it was kind of the nice karma and that we're leaving bad karma behind. I think it's a really good mashup of that. It's got both elements in there. And also, the best revenge is just moving on and being happy. And all the karma that she talks about in here are positive things that are happening in her life that have nothing to do with everything else. It's focused inward. It's not focused outward on, the other side of the street. It's focused on her side of the street. And I love that that's where karma went.
I agree. I love the bridge. Ask me what I learned from all those years. Ask me what I earned from all those tears. I'm still here. I love that. because she bounces back, she comes back, and she's strong for it. She's powerful for it. And she's self-aware, like we talked about.
It's a good one. Do you think the Easter eggs go deeper? Do you think there's more behind this? Or do you think it just kind of proves that we make the Easter eggs bigger than they are?
I think there's definitely a sense of making the Easter eggs bigger than we think they are. But I also think that there's always a possibility that there's more, or that karma is still a reference to something else, or I don't know.
But I don't think we got any huge clues that this is any bigger of an Easter egg than anything else.
I would agree.
So, okay. We've got our final song that just happens to be Taylor's first single on this, at least the first song that we're focusing on. We've got the music video for it, which is hands down my favorite that she's ever done.
It's so good.
So let's talk about Antihero.
So we wanted this to be the last song because we can't definitively choose a favorite, but if we were to, this would be both of ours. We love Antihero. And we were talking about how do we love it so much because it's the first one that Taylor's made it a big deal, or has she made it a big deal because she knew it would be everyone's favorite, or that it's her favorite, and how does that play into our expectations of it and our reaction of it? And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it all just melts together into this beautiful experience with this song because it is big and it's our favorite. So what were your first impressions when you heard Antihero?
I fell in love with it immediately. And like we said, probably because Taylor had said it would be her favorite and I had these huge expectations. I'm like, I want to know what's in her mind. What is it that she's written about that she loves the most? So I was expecting that I would really love it. And I was expecting it to be pretty deep because of the things she'd said. But even with high expectations, it blew me away. Every piece of it, from the lyrics of the song to the music of the song, to the music video, which I think is perfect because so many times artists have a music video that doesn't explain the lyrics. It kind of just has a feel. So it doesn't really tell the story much of the song. And this one tells the story of this song. It gives us the visual of what was in Taylor's head when she was writing it and the things she really, really means these lyrics to be. And the little vignette in the middle, oh my gosh.
It's so funny.
It's
and
so
good.
It's so good. Honestly, a woman in her position, we can assume some of the things that she would struggle with, but it's beautiful that she has put it in not only lyrics, but in a visual way with the video that helps us understand a little deeper and in such a fun way and kind of poking fun at all of these things, but also the very seriousness of them and the reality of them. And that Taylor Swift does feel these things. Again, it shows her and she can make it almost humorous and feel like, you know, if you don't laugh about life, the other alternative is to just sink deeper. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah. I think it's very healthy and strong of her to be this vulnerable with us and to understand that we all get it too. Yes, we experience us getting in our own way individually, but it's something that happens to all of us. You know, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me is about me getting in my own way. And yet that's a universal problem. It's something that we all struggle with. And I think that's the beauty of the challenge, is that we all get to see each other struggling with these different things and kind of shed that light on it. Okay, well, this is where I get in my own way. This is where I get in my own head and I struggle. And then we can watch each other and see that we're not the only one that deals with that. And there's other people dealing with other problems too. And it's just built this beautiful community of recognition and open minds, open hearts, vulnerability, all of those things that allow us to, like you said, take this in a humorous way and laugh and grow rather than sinking deeper.
I love this unifying thing she's done. Like you said, I love that this challenge has unified so many people and it's normalized our struggles. It really has normalized it. And I've loved watching everybody else's reels because I've seen things from the silly to completely deep and vulnerable And I love that it does take in that whole spectrum of I'm getting in my way, or I have this quirk, or I have to laugh about myself in one way or another. It's something that has really unified a lot of people and normalized that we're not perfect and we're not supposed to be. But yet it's given us this thing like, okay, I'm analyzing myself and I'm seeing where I do get in my way. And perhaps I can figure out how to work with that and be the person I want to be, taking all of that into consideration and either working with it or overcoming it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
I am obsessed.
I knew Taylor would give a lot with this one because of the buildup, because she always does. She always gives a lot. But I feel like this one, for some reason, it feels like a bigger gift than most.
I agree. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Let me tell you a few statistics that I kind of looked at. We know that I started thinking about this era as a mood ring. So I decided to go through and find out how many songs had references to colors, especially mood colors, and how the colors can represent moods. So I started doing that, but then I also realized a couple other themes throughout. So here are my 3 themes that I looked for. I have color, I have light references, whether that's like fires or stars or some kind of light reference, darkness, things like that. And then I have a time category where it had to do with eras, times, like a specific time or like a time in your life or something like that. So I counted it up. For colors, 8 of the 21, I did all the songs. So 8 of the 21 songs have reference to color or mood of color, or somehow bringing in the metaphors of color in. For light, 15 out of the 21 had a reference to light. And it could actually be 17, depending on how you look at a couple of words. And so between 15 and 17 of the 21 songs have a theme in there or a lyric to do with light. Time. Do you want to guess how many of the 21 that there is a distinct, specific reference to time?
I'm going to guess 19.
21. All
Really?
21 songs.
Wow.
Every one of them has a reference to time, which makes sense. Hello, Midnights.
Well, yes, true.
Makes sense. But it was interesting when I started going back, specifically looking for what I wanted it to be, which was a mood ring, but it has come back as a clock.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is about time in some way.
Man. She is a genius. I do have to say.
Yep. She's a genius. So how fun is that?
It's so fun. So we are going to have to end that conversation here. However, it's not the end of the conversation because at 3 a.m. she released 7 new wonderful extra songs. And so we want to talk about those as well. So tune in next week. We'll be posting a bonus podcast, which will be shorter than our usual ones, but it'll be about those 7 extra songs.
Yeah. So with that bonus episode, it will wrap up all of our thoughts on the release of Midnights. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Our Swift Epiphanies.
Follow us on social media at Our Swift Epiphanies for behind the scenes and bonus content, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive video content.
Get in on the conversation by commenting or messaging us with your Swift Epiphanies.